I saw the pilot when I was in college.
I thought it was amazing.
We both went to school with Penn and Adam, so when they were developing the pilot, we were kind of hearing murmurs about it. We didn't really know what we were doing.
The pilot came out, and I was showing it to everyone. This is gonna be the next big thing.
They had that YouTube video out, and everybody was really excited about it.
It was an internet sensation.
Ruff! Let's do it!
What time is it?
There was a small group of people who were really enthusiastic. And it wasn't that small a group of people. I mean, it was, but just internet style. It wasn't 1 billion people, it was like 1 million only.
A lot of people I worked with were like a lot older, and they were like, I don't understand this.
A few people were sitting around in an office and we were watching it, and one guy said, well, I kind of don't get it, but Gendy Tartakovsky, who used to, who came over with us, who did Dexter's and Powerpuff Girls and all that stuff, he basically said, oh, this show's gonna make it.
All the younger generation was super excited and thought it was like amazing, and this whole sort of new way of telling stories and doing stuff. And then I think older generations were like, they knew the younger generation really liked it, and they didn't really understand it, but they knew that there was something really magical about it, so they were really excited about it from that angle.
I remember when I saw the pilot, I was instantly like, oh, well, they're gonna make this, and it's gonna be a huge deal. And then just sort of like waiting, like months and months, being like, so where is that
Yeah,
thing?
where is it?
It took a couple of years before something ended up happening with it.
Then I heard that Cartoon Network was working on it.
They're like, oh, there's a new boss, Rob Sorcher.
He took a huge risk putting it on the air.
And they're like, he greenlit Mad Men. And I've been watching Mad Men. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, Breaking Bad. And I was like, oh man, that guy's he's got good taste. So when he greenlit Adventure Time, I was like, all right, this is exciting.
I've heard Sorcher say it just was weird, it was different, and that's what we're gonna do.
Always really interesting about Adventure Time is that there are things about it that are so rocks on head, easy to understand, mixed with things that are so deliberately incomprehensible that it creates this dissonance that I think people think is an accident, but it's not. It's very deliberate.
Yeah.
It's what's making it interesting.
That first season was a blur because there was so much going on.
When the season starts until it ends, it's like one long tunnel.
It was a lot of work to get this show off the ground, and everybody involved in that first season will tell you that.
They had put us into production, and then as they were doing that, they were trying to figure out what kind of show is this?
There was all this sort of like buzz surrounding the show, and nobody really knew what it was.
It was a little bit scary because I could see how high the bar was set.
I think they liked it a lot, but I think they also, they didn't know how to categorize it or sell it or market it.
Like one voice hadn't emerged, and Penn definitely had a vision, but I don't think the network was ready to embrace it.
That whole first season was kind of finding the show and the voice.
And I remember people sort of trying to guess what the tone of the show would be, and they were like all wrong. They thought it was just like some sort of like random kitty waffle sort of thing, Epic bacon, bro, like that kind of stuff.
Still think that.
Yeah, that's true. People do.
In the beginning, we had to pitch a lot of the shows to the network. So Penn would stay up all night boarding something, and we'd be like, Penn, we gotta get it.
I just remember you guys were pulling all-nighters. Like if I saw you or Penn or Pat, I'd be getting here at 9 a.m. and we've been here all night.
I just had a huge stack of things to change and draw over, so I wasn't really looking long distance.
But we didn't really have a bunch of comparison, so it seemed like, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be, right? You're supposed to spend all night fine-tuning these boards and redrawing everything.
Yeah, it was new. I didn't know how it was supposed to work.
It was stressful. That was my first job.
It took a whole season to figure out how to tell little 11-minute stories from that pilot.
It was so specific, and yet it had to change as a series.
Yeah, I think after the first board pitch, they walked out, or this is all apocryphal, but somebody walked out and they had no idea what they had just seen after the first board pitch. And that's when we kind of knew that we might be in trouble.
We threw out the first 7 boards we tossed out.
Complete storyboards that were just not the tone of what the show ended up being. And yeah, that was intense.
You see a lot of cool things get tossed out and a lot of things that didn't work.
I think several times it seemed like, well, it's over. They're done.
And they brought in some ringers.
Yeah.
You know, like some really like people that are like well respected.
There's a lot of stuff to prove and a lot of people to sort of put at ease.
But when we had to throw out all those episodes, it was basically starting all over again.
But I wasn't there for that part. I was upstairs on Flapjack, and I would just sit. There used to be a hole, and you could sit there and you could look down on the second floor, and I'd like listen to you guys talk and stuff, and I'd be like, oh, I wish I was down there.
Yeah. It's a staircase now.
I know, yeah.
It's like a metaphor.
The way we felt on first season was just things were messy, and there's always that possibility that the show won't really make it.
I couldn't imagine the show going past the first season after living through the first season.
There was one point where Penn said he wanted to go to Portland to make comics instead. So I had my doubts at that point.
I was hoping it would go 2 seasons. I mean, just because, there's shows don't last all the time.
I had never worked on a show that had gone more than 2 seasons.
Things go. Mark Hamill said to me once, hey, it's Hollywood. When a show ends, you just don't care. You just move on.
I just had a lot of fun the first season, and then I thought, well, we'll see.
I mean, you definitely know you're working on something special and something genuine and sincere. But is it going to resonate with the world, and the audiences are going to pick it up and feel the same way?
I don't know when I realized it, but there was definitely a sense of kind of spectacular magic on the horizon.
Just from looking at the boards, I just thought the crew was like top notch. They're great storytellers on top of being great artists too. So I knew they had some feet on it.
And I remember the first animatic I saw was Prisoners of Love, and yeah, I heard Penn doing LSP, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be great.
Oh yeah, I'm having a fun time.
I was like, oh my gosh, you guys have to keep that voice. And he said, I think we're going to. But there's an episode where Tree Trunks explodes. I remember seeing the pitch, and I thought, they're never gonna do that in the episode. But I laughed really hard, and then they did it. They totally did it.
The first Ice King episode, Prisoners of Love, just being in that record and kind of hearing it come together was pretty exciting.
Oh, my beard.
Night of Sphere, where Marceline got to be like really, really emotional.
Stay out of my life.
You're not even alive.
I don't know, for me it's like, it's all sort of like coming together.
And I kind of realized like, oh wow, they're really touching on some very interesting aspects of the human condition that I hadn't considered could be put into a kid's cartoon before.
For me, the moment I knew that this show was very, very unique was the Lich episode. And I remember watching the animatic for that. I was thinking to myself, holy moly, I can't believe an animated series on a network is going to end a season like this. And I remember watching it with my son, and his reaction was like, he was just like, what?
You know, they're like poets. They like were approaching it from this different direction that wasn't so like A to B.
It's sort of like an umbrella with which a whole bunch of things can live under. So it's not as specific as some shows. You know, it's sort of a mindset or a philosophy.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think the first time I heard like, I guess it's Buzz, was like they played it at Comic-Con.
Wow, this thing is really popular. I go to Comic-Con and I see everyone dressed up as these characters.
Comic-Con, one of the first, we're just seeing like everybody's dressed up as the characters. So we start walking down the corridor to get in line, and we go around the corridor, down the hall, to the left, wrapped around, back outside, onto a deck, wrapped around.
It's the first show I've ever worked on where when people ask me what I'm working on and I tell them Adventure Time, they know what the show is.
Yeah, you worked on shows where you mention it to somebody and they go, yeah, whatever. I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
It didn't seem real at first until I was traveling someplace. I was in Florida and people found out and they were asking me for my autograph. I'm like, I don't even do anything exciting on the show. My mom's a school teacher, so like at the very beginning, she would tell me as it started to grow, kids are drawing the characters on their papers that they're turning in. And I said, who are they drawing? And she's like, this dog and then the ice guy.
Costumes start showing up, you know, Halloween time. Start seeing Finn and Jake everywhere.
But I did not realize how fast and how far. You know, when I started seeing like, you know, trains covered in Adventure Time characters in China and stuff, I was like, whoa.
I'd never seen anything like this before, on this level, internationally. it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Like when you see, we have balloons in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, we're like, oh,
when
wow.
you start seeing merchandise.
Yeah.
And when you start seeing people wearing this stuff in public.
It connects with younger kids, younger audiences than older audiences. I remember early on thinking, oh wow, he figured out how to create a cartoon that reminds me of what I thought an adult was like when I was 12.
One of the board artists, Tom Herpick, got a phone call from a little girl, and we all got to hear this message, and she was like, I can't believe you did that. I just can't believe you did that. So it sounded like he broke her heart, basically, when, because PB and Finn kiss, but then she grows up.
Excuse me, Finn.
And then at the end, she was like, I just love it so much. So it was actually that she was so happy she was crying.
You can make a story that is like that funny and that upsetting simultaneously, that's even a thing anybody can do. It was like a new avenue.
What it was for me was I called a credit card company. And I was going to tell them I was going to make a big purchase. Oh, I see it by the phone. You work at Cartoon Network. You know the show called Adventure Something? And I said, yeah, it's Adventure Time. That's my show. Well, she was saying how her son watched it. And then what happened was she started watching it. And then it got to the point where she started showing all her friends. And she said, now it's a bunch of 40-year-olds standing around the water cooler that talk about Adventure Time. So I thought, oh, this show's going to be pretty big.
It's still shocking to me, really. The recognition, they know this world that I have spent the last 6 years of my life, helping to build and being a part of.
It feels like it's a magic trick that if we think about it too long, it'll just kind of fall apart. I think the timing of it was really fortuitous, because if you tried to make that show 5 years before, or even 5 years after, it might not have got greenlit. It was just the right opening where they were willing to take a chance.
Like a lot of shows, they try to make it look like the whole thing was made by one hand, but on Adventure Time, they just find people that have the right sensibility and then give them a certain amount of flexibility in execution.
I'm most proud that it's kind of this nexus between artists I really like, that there's no other show that has like James Baxter doing animation on an episode, and Masaki Yuasa doing animation, and also like David O'Reilly. There's no show that all three of those people would meet, for instance.
And there's no other show that has a cute robot where to put a VHS tape, it has to go in its butt.
I hurt my butt sledding.
That's my contribution. VHS tapes go in BMO's butt.
The amount of imagination that a lot of the storyboard artists have and like Penn has, it's sort of mind-boggling. I think it's a testament to why you see so many episodes, like doing 200 episodes. I mean, who's got that many stories?
I'm going to say it's definitely going to go in 8th season at least.
We're at 200 now. I can see it going for another 200.
I can too. Go for 1,000.
We're hoping for 1,000 episodes.
As long as they've got ideas and as long as people keep watching, they'll keep making it.
It could go on for 400 to 1,000 episodes because you can just keep telling the stories. And the thing is, the more stories we tell, we still haven't answered all the questions about what happened, why we're in this world. So it could go on for a very, very long time. And that's thrilling.
I can see it going on forever.
Another 1,000.
I think it doesn't matter because it'll get rebooted in 8 years, no matter what.
I thought I'd be working on Adventure Time Babies at this point.
They pitch that periodically.
Yeah, we knew we were part of something special, and yeah, I see 200, I see 400. I do see Adventure Time forever.